All right, let's dive right in. We're talking about AI-generated art, specifically portraits. And there's this new method we're going to look at today that might have finally cracked the code. How to make these portraits not just okay, but genuinely artistic, without completely losing the person's face in the process.
I mean, come on, we've all seen this, right? You feed a perfectly good photo into an AI, you ask it to make it look like some cool painting, and you get that. Yeah, a weird, kind of smudgy mess where the person's face is just gone. It looks more like a watercolor accident than a real piece of art. It is the perfect example of expectation versus a very, very disappointing reality.
And listen, this isn't just a minor glitch we're talking about. The entire research community pretty much agrees this is one of the biggest hurdles in AI image generation. I mean, think about it. How do you apply a really radical artistic style with all its crazy distortions and unique quirks and still keep the essence of that person's identity totally intact? It's super tricky. So that really brings us to the big question for this whole explainer. Why is this so hard? Why do these AI portraits miss the mark so often? Well, it comes down to a few core challenges. For starters, you can't just go out and find a million portraits all painted in the exact same style to train an AI. That kind of data set, it doesn't exist. Then there's the fact that a lot of the current AIs, they only copy the surface level stuff, The colors, the textures of the brushstrokes, they completely miss the deeper soul of the style. And of course, there's that constant tug of war, trying to make it artistic enough, but not so artistic that the person just vanishes. So, how do we fix this? Well, this new research we're diving into today, it proposes a pretty brilliant solution. And it all starts by teaching the AI to see art the way a human artist does, by breaking it down into two totally different things. Okay, so the first part is what the paper calls concrete features. And honestly, this is what most AIs already try to do. They see the specific colors, the texture of the brushstrokes, the definite lines. It's all the tangible, measurable stuff you can literally point to in a painting. But here's the secret sauce. The second part is what they call abstract features. Now this is the stuff that's way harder to pin down. We're talking about the overall shape language, the composition, the mood, the entire atmosphere of the piece. This is the artist's unique signature, and it's the part that most AI just completely overlooks. The researchers themselves put it perfectly in their paper. They said style isn't just about the basic visual stuff, but also these deeper things like structure, layout, and shape. And that just nails it, right? True artistic style isn't just some filter you slap on top. It's a deep, fundamental change to the image itself. Okay, so how do you take this really cool idea of abstract and concrete features and actually build it into an AI? Well, that brings us to the hero of our story, a new model called ACFun, and it was designed from the ground up to understand and use both. And I mean, the name pretty much says it all, abstract concrete fusion. But here's the real kicker, the part that's just incredible. Remember that huge problem about not having big data sets for training? ACFun just completely sidesteps it. It only needs one style image and one face image to work. That's it, one of each. So you're probably wondering, how on earth does it actually pull this off? Well, the best way to think about it is like it has a two-part brain, or maybe a small, super specialized team of artists all working together. Okay, so the process basically has three key steps. First up, you've got the AFun module. Think of this as the concept artist. It looks at the style image and just captures the vibe, the abstract stuff. Then in comes the CFun module, who's like the master painter. This one handles all the fine details, the concrete features like brushstrokes and colors. And finally, you have something called alignment loss, which is basically the art director, making sure both the concept artist and the master painter are on the same page, ensuring everything works together perfectly. All right, enough theory, right? The proof is in the pudding, or in this case, the pixels. Let's actually see how ACFun stacks up against some of the other big names out there. So here we're comparing it to a method called Dream Styler. Now, just look at that result. It suffers from what the paper calls style degradation, which is a fancy way of saying the style gets all washed out and kind of sloppy. But then look at ACFun's result. It's so crisp, so clean, so artistically strong. You can really feel that it captured the essence of the original style. Okay, now let's put it up against instant style. The paper points out that this method often just kind of pieces things together. It's almost like a collage without a real deep understanding of the style or the face.
But again, look at ACFun. It creates something that feels totally integrated and whole, like a real artist actually painted it from scratch. And look, it's not just our gut feeling looking at these images. The researchers actually did a user study with 50 volunteers. And when they were asked to just pick the best overall result, a huge majority, over 54%, picked the one made by ACFun. No contest. But here's the number that really matters. When those same people were asked which model was best at keeping the person's identity, their face, while still applying the style, that number jumps to over 63%. Remember that smudgy mess we talked about right at the start? This right here, this is the proof that ACFun is actually solving that exact problem.
I mean, this is all incredibly impressive stuff. But let's zoom out for a second. What does this all mean for the bigger picture? Why does this breakthrough matter beyond just, making cooler profile pictures? Well, because this is about a fundamental shift in how we teach AI to understand really nuanced human things. Instead of just brute forcing it with a million examples and hoping it finds a pattern, we're actually teaching it how to deconstruct and interpret a concept, in this case art, into its core parts, the abstract and the concrete. And this is where it gets kind of mind-blowing. The researchers themselves point out that this whole process is weirdly similar to how our own brains process what we see. When we look at something, it's not just raw data flooding in. It's what they call a top-down process, where our brain uses what it already knows to interpret the signals from our eyes. And ACFun's whole system, separating and then fusing ideas, works in a surprisingly similar way. So that leaves us with a pretty big final thought. By teaching an AI to separate the tangible from the intangible, the concrete from the abstract, ACFun might be taking one of the first real steps toward not just mimicking human art, but actually interpreting it in a more human-like way. And that raises a huge question, doesn't it? Not just for the future of AI, but for the future of creativity itself.